Hello, welcome to the Leading the Guardians of Today, a panel discussion with some of the topmost senior enlisted leaders of the Space Force. I'm Gerald Murray, Chairman of the Board of the Air Force Association, and it's my honor to be the moderator of this panel with these distinguished senior enlisted leaders. Leading change is difficult at any time, but launching a new service and doing it well is a unique challenge. Our panelists are helping to lead change in 3 different Space Force deltas. Joining me today are Chief Master Sergeant Susan Sparks, the Senior Enlisted Leader of Delta 2, Space Domain Awareness. Chief Master Sergeant Willie Frazier, Delta 4, the Senior Enlisted Leader of the Missile Warning System. And Chief Master Sergeant Michael Dyer, the Senior Enlisted Leader of Delta 6 of Cyber Operations. Chiefs, let's begin with a very brief description of your Delta, perhaps its size and scope, and the single biggest challenge you're facing right now. Chief Sparks, how about we start with you?
Of course. So the mission of Space Delta 2 is to prepare, present, and fight assigned and attached forces for the purpose of executing combat-ready space domain awareness. Primarily, we are 380 folks strong, with officers and enlisted, both guardians and airmen mixed in there. We do have a large component of civilians and contractors as well that provide warfighter support. One takeaway is space domain awareness. When we talk about that, we talk about including intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. We collect metric observations, and we also do environmental monitoring. And so one of the biggest single challenges we have right now, honestly, is to really develop the scope of what space domain awareness is. In the past, space domain awareness has always been a secondary or tertiary mission to a lot of our other space systems. And so now we have brought that out, and it is our primary focus. And so really just changing the focus of the entire Delta probably is one of the biggest challenges we have.
All right, thanks, Susan. Chief Frazier.
So what we do at Space Delta 4 is there's about 1,000 of us TFI that conduct the missile warning, missile defense mission. So we have bases in 9 different time zones in the Northern Hemisphere that provide that early warning for missile defense. I'll say one of the challenges that we have in our Delta is building that culture and identity and letting people know that, they have the ability to make the Space Force what they want it to be. And we really are listening. So trying to get rid of the frozen middle, as they call it, when a guardian or an airman has a great idea and they funnel it up through their chain, and somewhere in the middle, it gets just, oh, we've always done it like that. And then we, at the Delta headquarters level, don't get the opportunity to hear those great ideas because some people will think that there's no money or it'll never happen, but it definitely will never happen if we don't know about it.
That's true. All right, Chief Dyer.
So Space Delta 6 provides combat-ready forces that operates and maintains the $6.8 billion satellite control network. And we also conduct defensive cyber operations for unique space mission networks. So essentially, we have about 1,000 folks located all around the world in 3 satellite operation squadrons that maintain the satellite control network. And then we have 2 cyberspace squadrons that are doing active defense currently on 4 space weapon systems, one of which is the satellite control network. And we're growing more cyberspace squadrons over the next 3 years. So probably our biggest challenges on the space access side is aging equipment, and so that needs modernization, as well as working on utilization rates as more things go up into space, since we have the ground segment for anything that's in space. And then on the cyberspace side, converting what was Air Force communications and IT AFSCs into cyber specialties within the Space Force. And the Space Force is leading the charge, I would say, in growing cyber across in a defensive capability set, more than probably where the Air Force is today.
All right. Well, We've collected several questions, regarding the Space Force and to some of the challenges, certainly that you've mentioned. And I think about our audience, of Guardians. I think other airmen, those the potential that would looking to come or might consider coming into the Space Force, and even our industry leaders today. And of course, the Air Force and all of you are prior airmen now becoming are the new guardians of the force. So how about that we maybe start with about the Delta itself. How is the Delta different from the Air Force wing? Clearly at any time, any of you can, chime in, but how about, again, Chief Sparks, you take that one for a start.
Of course. So primarily the largest difference between a Delta and a wing is the base support functions. So currently the Deltas don't maintain the support functions you traditionally see across a wing. So organizations like our finance, our personnel services, things like that, that is all managed by the what we call right now garrison. And so the Deltas are primarily focused on the mission that they've been directed to perform.
Okay. Any others, consideration?
I think that it's a great relationship between us and the garrison here at Buckley, where they are very supportive of us and all of our GSUs that we have around the world. So let's say Clear Alaska has a question about whatever it is, they can reach back to us, or they can reach directly back to the unit that's involved, let's say CE, for example. And our CE folks have been very supportive in getting them the help and the answers that they need, because as we know, being in Central Alaska all alone and unafraid can be difficult at times. So maintaining that relationship to make sure that not only the units that are stationed here at Buckley, but all of our units as a Delta are getting the support that they need.
Okay, all right. I'd be interested to hear from each of you, what's been the biggest surprise, here in your first year? You're roughly a year old now as an independent service. Mike, how about you take that one to kick off?
So I'd say the biggest surprise is how fast that we're going. Being able to create a service from the ground up obviously hasn't been done in over 70 years. And it's been inspiring as we've been doing this. So just to grow, like in our case in Delta 6, cyber capabilities, being able to innovate a roadmap and then bring it out for execution, and then be able to see the return on some of those services, and the partnership like we have with Delta 4 is the testament to how we're going to be able to get after this for all of the space mission systems. So that's been probably the biggest surprise in the first year.
Okay, all right. Chief Sparks?
Yeah, so I think I concur with what Chief Dyer mentioned. So I think the amount of progress that we've made over the last year is probably one of the biggest surprises. Obviously, none of us know how to stand up a force. Like Chief Dyer mentioned, it's been a while since we've done that. So just the amount of effort and time and work that folks have to do in order to do this, it's not a seamless transition or a seamless stand up. And so there's a lot of things that go on in the background. So it's just amazing with the small number of folks that we actually have in the Space Force and how much progress we've made over the last year. Very impressed with that.
That's great. Chief Frazier, how about you?
So I would say the level of dedication that we have, other services don't have the abilities that we have because there are not very many of us. So we can deliberately develop talent in a way that others may not be able to do. And the best part is, if it doesn't work, then we can just scrap it and try again, because we have that, infancy, for lack of a better term, where we don't have those baked in, super strong traditions that have to be adhered to. We're kind of making those traditions right now. And the level of excitement that our Guardians and Airmen have working these missions and being part of a new force is surprising as well.
That's great to hear. Well, Chief Frazier, in your opening comments, you mentioned about the culture of the Space Force. How will the Space Force culture be different from the Air Force, or are you seeing it becoming different from the Air Force? And in other ways, how will it be the same?
So I think we have a responsibility to be different because, you know, we have separated from the Air Force, and we need to inspire that culture of people that want to be part of something that's newer than what they were part of before. And, you know, in our Delta especially, we don't want to say that, you know, we just took elements from the 21st Space Wing and elements from the 460th Space Wing and then bolted on the ground-based radars that we inherited. It's not that. It's a brand new organization, which is amazing. And, you know, we make sure that we keep that on the forefront of our minds and on the forefront of the unit's minds. I think some things that'll stay the same is naturally, you know, we have a combatant command in US Space Command that we have to present combat ready forces to, and we need to take that very seriously as well. So, you know, when we talk about being agile, lean, and ready to go at any time, that's what we have the responsibility to do. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So that is, you know, kind of how we're still the same as the Air Force and all the other branches for that matter.
Well, you know, you mentioned the combatant command, and we know at this time that an Army general leads the Space Combatant Command. So, Chief Dyer, let me ask you this one. The Space Force so far has been built from airmen. And all of you, of course, have been airmen, you know, before you joined up into the Space Force. Now we're looking forward and about to see applicants being accepted from the Army, Navy, Marines, and perhaps other organizations. How do you think that that's going to maybe affect or change things, or how is the Space Force going to adapt with the different backgrounds and services coming into it?
So I think, you know, especially on the senior leader side, most of us, if not all of us, have done joint assignments in the past. So I know for me, I've spent a lot of time with the Army, Navy, and Marines, and I think what they're going to bring to the fight is, much like everything else that we've done, is going to be innovative and a different outlook. So we're not going to bring in just random skill sets. The folks that are going to be coming in are still inherently space or cyber or intel in what they do. So you might get a different flavor or a different way of looking at a problem set from their service culture identity, but that's good for the Space Force as it grows our identity, as Chief Frazier was just talking about, because, you know, we are a small, lean, and agile force that is not 200,000 strong like maybe the Air Force is. So we have to be able to do things differently, and bringing these other branches in is going to help get us after that.
Okay. You know, that really is going to be bringing, you know, more diversity into the force, at least in the way of thinking and cultures and everything. But to Chief Frazier and Chief Sparks, diversity and equity and inclusion are words that weren't so much of a lexicon clearly when I joined the service, but they're absolutely central now. What do those words mean to you, and how will they be different in the Space Force? Susan, your thoughts?
I think we're already doing things differently. You know, I feel like the Air Force has always been somewhat of the trendsetter. If you look at the DoD services, we spun off from the Air Force. I think we were already heading down that pathway anyway. And so the diversity and inclusion aspect of it brings a lot to the table when we talk about being innovative, dynamic, and so we can't do it without all the different ideas and thoughts that people bring to the table. So I really think we're already getting after it. Of course, we have a long ways to go, but it is an everyday conversation nowadays. And so I think that's the right start for us going forward.
Okay, Chief Frazier.
I agree with Chief Sparks. I think that maybe in the past we've lost a lot of great people who could have gone on and been the chief of staff of the Air Force, but for whatever reason, because that diversity, inclusion, and equity maybe were not present. And we have a responsibility to keep that in our minds when we make decisions. And it could be small things like where do you place a first sergeant? Is it awesome to have a superintendent, a commander, and a first sergeant that are all females? Or is it awesome to have a different mixture of people, so that way our guardians and airmen see people and know that, that could be me one day? So we have that responsibility, and I think it's awesome. Another thing that we don't think about is our unconscious biases, right? The Air Force and the Space Force allow you to be 39 years old and enlist now, right? Well, it's my opinion that a 39-year-old has lived some life. I had an airman that I worked with when I was in Germany. He was 39 years old. He was an A1C. He was an opera singer before he joined. So we need to make sure that we exploit that talent. And again, because there's not going to be very many of us, we have a responsibility to do that.
That's a great point, indeed. Chief Sparks, you have shared with me that you will be PCSing soon to join Chief Toberman's team in the Pentagon and helping him shape, a lot more, about the Space Force there. I think that's pretty exciting opportunity to you. Across both the Air Force and really now in the Space Force, there's been a lot of talk about digital literacy in the Space Force. Is that really something new and different, or is it more of a generational change? How do you see that?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's something new and different. I think the new generation of airmen and guardians coming into the Air and Space Force are from a digital age. I think there's some education for some of us older folks to be inclusive when it comes to the digital aspect of what we do. But I don't think it's anything new. I think we're just expanding upon it, and we're really relying on the integration of how we do things across the force, how we connect to our folks, how we communicate with our folks. And I think we're really looking at exploiting all those opportunities to take us to the next level.
Okay, all right. Chief Dyer, any thoughts on that?
So I agree with Chief Sparks.
Background.
I agree with Chief Sparks on that. I think the airmen that are coming in today in Guardians have probably had laptops before kindergarten, and we really need to harness what they could bring to the fight. And I remember my time at Dyer, where the newest B1 on that flight line was a 1986 tail, and the youngest airman working on it was born well after that tail was produced off of the line. And how our younger generation thinks is in this digital age is something that we have to be able to harness, because they do it smarter, faster, and it's just amazing, the results. And I saw it on the B1s, and I've seen it in every assignment since on how we can tap into their ingenuity.
Okay, all right. And Chief Dyer, let me follow up with you about a current environment that we're in, and it's the COVID environment and its impact. Of course, there's not a one of us that have not been infected in some way, in this environment that we are continuously in. It's been so disruptive, for so many families, certainly for our guardians, airmen and others, but it's got to be fairly unprecedented as well, of standing up a new force at this time. So what extenuating challenges has launching a new force in this environment in the midst of the pandemic, how has it affected your unit, your ability to stand up the force? And if you would, how about how you view its effect on our guardians and the families?
So I'll start off with Delta 6 specifically. So as I said earlier, we've got units all over the globe. So it's created a new norm, if you will, on supply chain management, maintenance tasks, getting crews out to our sites. Like Diego Garcia's got virtually a 30-day restriction in movement to get a team. So they're going to restrict in Yokota and then restrict in Diego Garcia before they even touch any one of my antennas. So that creates a burden with 500 satellite contacts a day that we're supporting across the Space Force. There is wear and tear on my ground antennas in doing that. So working through those challenges has been unique. On the family side, and as far as our airmen and guardians, that both Del 6 has both airmen and guardians, that's also created new norms. And I think our level of connectiveness has increased during the pandemic. Things like Zoom, like we're on now, Teams. I have not seen a more connected team in my almost 30-year career that I've seen of what we've gained in the last year during COVID, just because we've had to think outside the box on ways to stay connected with our airmen and their families and the guardians and their families.
Wow. Chief Frazier, Chief Sparks, any other thoughts on the COVID environment?
I completely understand and agree with where Chief Dyer is going, because we are in the same predicament, I guess. One of my biggest concerns since COVID was making sure that we stay connected to our airmen and guardians. We don't have, so currently Delta 2's leadership team is located at Peterson in Colorado. And we have a staff function that supports the overall Delta, but all of our organizations are located around the world, none located here with us. And so out of the 300 and some folks we have, I see 20 to 30 folks on a day-to-day basis. And so we had to come up with some ingenious ideas, I guess, and utilize some of the technology that's already out there. And so, I try to tell people that not all of COVID is bad. We've learned quite a bit. We've adapted very well. And I think that's something that we can all really be, pleasured about and so just being able to connect with our folks and find new ways to do that. And so without COVID, I don't know that we'd be in the same position that we're in now. So in some ways, that's a good thing. And so I try to look at the positive aspects of the things that we've learned from the new environment that we've been forced into. So
that's a good point. Chief Frazier. Chief Frazier, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry about that. One of our, a lot of our 1 Charlie 6s have never really deployed anywhere. And I think COVID, we had an opportunity to let them know what that deployed environment was like, because we secluded some people in lodging on base, and they were allowed to go to the gym, to work, and back to their lodging room, even if they had families that lived in the local area. So, just having the opportunity to show them, exactly what that's like. And, it's, not to sound weird, but they're like, I remember that time back in 2020 when, so, they have that story now, right? Where they may not have otherwise gotten that story. But I will tell you, one of the things that that I find myself concerned with is, I haven't been able to go on the operations floor in almost a year. I've been there maybe 3 times in the last year, because I don't want to be the one that introduced cooties to all the operators, right? And so I worry about the things that we don't see. I worry about the people and the families that were used to at least having an 8 to 10 hour break from each other, right? Monday through Friday at least. And now they're all on top of each other doing homework, and both people maybe are employed and they're teleworking and all the things that come with that. So we have to be very deliberate in making sure that we keep those connections, as my esteemed colleagues have mentioned, to make sure that you still have the ability to talk to the MFLAC. Maybe we can't get you parents' night out, but we have different things, like I'll watch someone's kids if they want me to. They can come over and play with my dogs, so mom and dad can go out on a date. That's fine. So those are just some of the things from my perspective.
You know, I wish we were meeting together right now versus the way that we're doing this, but we're making the best out of it. And I think that's your point, Chief Sparks, you know, taking the challenges and turning them into opportunities. You know, as both, you know, Mike, you and Frazier have talked about, it certainly makes us think about things differently and doing different before we do so. But we're all making the best of it, so that's good. You know, this next one, you're all called guardians now. I had the opportunity this week to be able to see the list of hundreds and hundreds of inputs that were made for consideration for the title, the names that were going to be given. Some pretty interesting ones, odd and interesting ones, I might say as well. How are the Guardians accepting, you know, this new title? But more so, you've actually introduced new rank structures, specialist in place of, you know, what you grew up as airman, sergeant with no staff sergeant. How's this going so far? How, you know, is it being accepted, or what do you think about it? Chief Frazier, how about that?
So far it's been a mixed review. As you know, the internet is a cruel, cruel place. And, you know, the memes have been pretty, yeah, they've been pretty creative. I think as a force, I think the term specialist fits in with the joint community. People know what that means. And, you know, again, we have that opportunity to create something new, something that people can latch onto. You're not always going to please everyone, but, you know, we have opportunity here to, again, do something different. And then as far as Guardians, you know, I think Air Force Space Command has always been Guardians. So if you go back to the 1900s when, you know, Space Command was stood up, we were Guardians of the High Frontier, right? So it fits in. A lot of people try to say Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm like, well, hold on, because we were Guardians before they were, so they copied it from us.
There you go. That's a good reminder. Mike, you're smiling about it. You must have a comment about it.
So, you know, like Frazier says, I think the reviews have been mixed. I've heard more positives than negatives. We just did a transfer ceremony last week where we brought in our airmen, intel or cyber folks that were coming from the Air Force into the Space Force, and the enthusiasm as I was walking the ranks and asking, hey, what's your new rank going to be? Especially to the sergeants and the specialists, they were, you know, beyond ecstatic to say that they were a sergeant or a specialist, gender neutral. And I was like, wow, this is going way better than I personally thought it was going to go. But no issues. And I like that the sergeant rank came back, because, you know, I was almost going to be a sergeant myself, you know, back in the 90s. So, and I think it's a foundational NCO rank. And, you know, for us to have that in the Space Force before they become technical sergeants is a good thing, and a blast to our past.
Good. Chief Sparks, Susan, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with both Chief Dyer and Chief Frazier. There's mixed reviews, of course. Not everybody's going to be happy. I think there's a lot of historical significance behind the thought process that went into deciding to stick with the specialists. You know, there's the Army had that pay grade or that rank for quite some time, and so, you know, you could say that our grandparents, if you will, from the Space Force, you know, the Army, because the Air Force grew out of the Army, bringing the sergeant rank back, I think was one of the best decisions that we could made with the new rank structure. You know, and then sticking with our technical sergeants, because that's when we talk about space operators and cyber operators and our intel folks, we talk about being technical experts in our field and what we do. And so we definitely wanted to hold true to that. And we didn't want a whole lot of confusion across the joint community, because, you know, I think a lot of people wanted fancy rank names and almost, you know, what you would see in Hollywood, but we need to be able to communicate across the joint environment. So I think we got it right, to be honest with you. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but yeah, no, I'm loving it, and love the fact that we picked Guardians, like Chief Frazier mentioned. That's been around long before the movie. And in fact, I've got Guardian Challenge coins from late 1990s and early 2000s. So definitely a historical significance for Air Force Space Command and for us. So.
Wow, it's great to have y'all speak about it so positively. Well, as we looked and as you look to the future of the force, and doing so in taking and considering your current operating environment and the challenges presented there, what are the guardians of tomorrow going to need to be successful in this new Space Force? Sarah, how about I take that one to start with? I'm sorry, I didn't. You know, there's another Chief Sparks in Sarah.
I do. Yeah, we trade emails often. Great chief, by the way. So yes, no, I think our guardians in the future need support and room to be innovative, and the opportunity to be able to grow from where they are. And I think the way we have built our structure right now affords them that opportunity. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get everybody in the role of that. But I think allowing them to be innovative and bold in their ideas, I think that's what we can best afford our guardians for the future.
Okay, Chief Frazier.
So I would say we need to give them the space to make mistakes. We need to give them the resources, all the resources that they need, but most importantly, we need to give them support and let them know, look, yes, we're new, but some of us have been doing this for a long time. Here's some pointers, but don't have this be restrictive. I need your crazy ideas or ideas that you think would be crazy, because my boss often tells all of the units, you need to be making me feel uncomfortable so I can make General Whiting feel uncomfortable so he can make General Raymond feel uncomfortable about the ideas. And as long as we continue to nurture that and foster those ideas and keep them coming, we won't be able to say yes to all of them, but our challenge is make us say no. We owe you a reason why we can't do it. So I think if we arm our people with that and the creativity and all the things that they need to help us battle our near peer and far peer, adversaries, I think it's going to be goodness.
All right. Chief Dyer, Mike?
So, I agree with both Chief Frazier and Chief Sparks. I think a key is tapping in to what our future guardians bring from academia and just their life experiences as they come in. We, as the leadership, as Chief Frazier talked to, we need to eliminate the barriers. So there's a lot of bureaucracy that is over 70 plus years is built into the Air Force. And as we're starting with a clean slate in the Space Force, how can we eliminate some of the bureaucracy so that we can tap in to the ingenuity of our young guardians, what officer and enlisted, and let them grow the force for us and the future guardians that are coming behind them.
I'll tell you, it's exciting to hear each of you talk about, the force and the positive aspects. We are all so impressed, with what you bring. There's no doubt that our young guardians are being served well and led well by your leadership there. We are in the Air Force Association are also very proud to be able to represent you in every way that we can. And we are even looking at our own self of how we can be a better association in being able to support the U.S. Space Force. So again, thank you. Let me give each of you the opportunity, if you'd like, any closing comments, anything we've not touched on, anything for those, potential future guardians and or anyone else to let them know about the great new Space Force. How about we'll go to Chief Frazier, Chief Sparks, and then Chief Dyer.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Chief, for having us on here. I'm going to speak for them, but we really appreciate the fact that that you and the Air Force Association were able to have us. I think what I would say is come join us. You're going to have opportunities that you may not get in another service. We're going to take your ideas. We're going to run with them. We're going to make you feel welcome. We have cookies and whatever else you need, but we need your brain power. We need everyone's brain power. That's all I got, sir.
All right, thank you. Chief Sparks.
Yeah, definitely want to echo what Chief Frazier said. Chief Murray, thank you so much for the opportunity and to the AFA for the opportunity to speak today. So I completely agree. We brand new service. We have a lot of opportunities for folks, and so bring it. We are looking for the smart, folks that are innovative, bold in their ideas, not afraid to ask questions, not afraid to give ideas. That's what we really need to move to the future. It's a fast moving train. And so I just ask that people jump on board and hold on tight. And I guarantee it's going to be an awesome experience. So.
All right. Chief Dyer.
Well, Chief Murray, thank you for the opportunity today, as well as the AFA given the opportunity as well. Obviously I'm the only Air Force chief on this panel, but I will definitely say that over the last year, it has been absolutely amazing being a plank holder in the Space Force, and probably the highlight of my career so far. It is a fast moving train, as both Chief Sparks and Chief Frazier said, but it is a train that is going to reap benefits for not only the DoD, but the American people as a whole. And I welcome all future Guardians because this service is amazing. So again, thanks for the opportunity and looking forward to see what the Guardians are going to bring in the future after I'm retired.
All right, super. Well, as you note that, and I want to thank you for what a fantastic career that you've had. Wish you the very best as you go off into the future, but knowing that your wife continues to serve our nation, and I know that you will as well. To Susan, Chief Sparks, headed to the Pentagon there. How exciting that is with that and the opportunity that you'll have to be able to continue to serve and help mold the Space Force. And Chief Frazier, I must say how impressed that I have been with you and the leadership and the time, short time of being able to get to know you. And I look forward to following you and watching you as you continue to develop the force as you go forward. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your vision here with AFA's virtual Aerospace Warfare Symposium. It has been a pleasure. And let me thank you all for who tuned in to watch this, to listen and to learn about the new Space Force and from its most senior enlisted leaders. AFA is here for you every day and every week. And if you're enjoying our symposium, then I ask you, join me in the work that we here at AFA do in supporting airmen, guardians, and their families, and in educating the public and advocating for the world's greatest Space Force and the world's greatest Air Force. Be a part of the force behind the force. Click the About AFA tab on your left menu bar and learn more to get a special discount just for attending this event. I will tell you that you'll be glad that you did. Thank you all for joining us.